One dreamy morning, I woke up to find myself sharing a bed with the prince. To make matters worse, our lips accidentally touched, and in that moment of embarrassment and racing heart, I was left speechless. Chapter 27. A Feather-like Kiss. She had been plagued by nightmares when she fell asleep the previous night, but waking up after such a comfortable sleep now, she felt refreshed. Since she left her packed territory, this was the best sleep she had. So comfortable that she did not open her eyes yet, trying only to cuddle some more in the warm bed, with the smell of fresh flowers and a familiar comforting smell of musk with tints of lavender. This was strange, she thought. She did not have fresh flowers in the guest room, so why could she smell fresh flowers and musk? Trying to clear her mind, she hugged a bit more the pillow in her arms when she felt a soft moist touch near her temple. It almost felt as a feather-like kiss. It startled her, and she immediately opened her eyes and looked in the direction of where the touch came from, only to look straight in the pair of deep blue eyes of His Majesty. But this was not the most embarrassing thing. No, the most embarrassing thing was that when she moved so suddenly like that, not only were their eyes locked looking at each other, their lips had locked together also. She was so stunned that, even though their lips were still touching, she did not move back. She could not even breathe in this moment, and her heart felt like it would jump out of her chest any moment now, not only because of this unfortunate accident, which was the smaller problem perhaps, but most importantly because His Highness had not moved as well. After a few more moments of this immobile state, she suddenly moved back, regaining her senses. Looking at her surroundings, she discovered that she was in His Highness's indoor garden, and, until she let go and moved back, she had been cuddling in his arms, sleeping. The comfortable pillow she had held was his waist and chest. Her face was flushed red. Why did she think she would be in her bed when she clearly went into the garden? "I am sorry, Your Highness," I touched. She was trying to apologize, but she fell silent as she could not utter with her mouth that she had hugged and accidentally touched his lips also. "But I am not sorry," he calmly affirmed, looking straight at her. She was looking down apologetically as she spoke with stuttering words, not daring to meet his eyes directly, but his words made her instinctively look at him, and, seeing his serious eyes, her body and face froze. What was she supposed to say after hearing his words? She stood silent for some time, feeling suffocated by his eyes that seemed to have captured hers. It felt like it was impossible to break eye contact. He did not speak, but his eyes felt like they were ordering her to not look away. "I did not mean to touch Your Highnesses." She apologized again with great difficulty. Perhaps she had only misunderstood the meaning of his words. Her mind was not functioning too well at this moment, after all. "That was not a touch," he interrupted her, not permitting her to brush it off as an accident, even though it clearly was. "It was a kiss," Solars continued with a hoarse, determined voice. She widened her eyes, as her face flushed even more than it did when she realized what she had done. He dared to say the word she avoided, a word she had only referred to as a touch, only a contact between their skins. He so easily unembarrassed used. That was not. She tried to refute with difficulty. She was barely capable of choosing her words at this moment. How could she do such a thing to a man she barely knew? Not to mention the king. "What is a kiss, Celia?" As his generally gentle voice seemed to have changed its tone, it was like he was implying something. She could not answer. How could she say the definition of a kiss with her own mouth? It would only confirm his words. "What is a kiss, Celia?" He repeated his question, still with the same tone. He never left her gaze, making it impossible for her to blink or think, making all the sad thoughts from before vanish like they were not in her mind in the first place. "What is a hug, Celia?" he inquired again, not leaving her any time to calm down. She did not even manage to answer the first question, but he reminded her of the hug also. By this point her breathing stopped altogether, and, feeling like her heart could no longer bear his presence, she did the only thing that felt logical. She got up and ran away with all her strength, forgetting she was a patient, forgetting that he was the king, so it was rude of her to walk away from him. She ran and ran, only stopping when she reached her room and closed it off, still pressing with her back against the door, blocking it. She breathed heavily, It seemed she was compensating for the air she could not breathe in his presence. As her legs gave out under her weight, she slid down until she sat on the floor. She could do nothing about what happened. She was the one who hugged him first, so she could not refute even one of his words. But why did His Highness not try to brush it off as an accident? That would have been the polite thing to do, and he had been nothing but courteous and polite so far. In a span of almost 2 days he had managed to make her change her opinion of him each time she saw him. First he was gentle, then stern, and now incomprehensible. Which one was the real him, and why would he show her so many kinds of faces? And lastly, why would his face and touch linger in her mind, dominating her thoughts so? She was still crouched down on the floor several hours later. She was at least thankful he did not pursue her. But how would she face him for the rest of the time she was here? Knock. Knock. Her heart jumped at the sound, but managed to calm down when she heard a maid's voice. "Miss Celia, may I come in?" The polite maid inquired, then waited patiently for the answer. She got up from the floor, not answering. She had locked the door when she came in, only now realizing it was rude of her, as this was not her home. Taking a deep breath to calm her still erratic mind, she slowly turned the lock, trying to not make a sound. She was quite silly to do so, as the maid was also a werewolf, and most likely heard the door unlocking. But she was still not thinking clearly. Then, with the same novelty thoughts, she stepped away from the door and went toward the bathroom. "Please come in," she committed a bit louder, as if she had stepped out of the bathroom, feeling awkward at her own actions. "Miss Celia, I have brought dinner for you," replied the maid, entering with another maid carrying with food. "Thank you," she thanked, still awkward, not even daring to meet the 2 girls' eyes. She was wondering what to do if she had to face him at dinner, but she could see that there was only enough food for a person. If indeed she was to eat alone, how wonderful that would be. "You are welcome. His Highness had to leave for the day, so he instructed us to bring the dinner to your room. Unfortunately, he will not be able to dine with you tonight," the maid explained, smiling, even though she did not ask. "Oh, it is all right," she affirmed, just because she felt it was the polite thing to do. But she was really wondering why the maid felt the need to explain further. It was not necessary to do so. Late into the night, after eating a few bites of her dinner and preparing to sleep, she was still perturbed. Her mind kept jumping from thought to thought, when she was interrupted. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." 2 voices were enthusiastically calling out to her, causing her to snap out of her thoughts. "Crescent," she quickly replied, in her mind overjoyed. "Yup, it is us," Crescent affirmed, playful, while she was jumping up and down in her mind. "Are you all right?" Waning asked, worried. She was the calmer one of the 2 of them, and was just sitting down. "Yes, I am. I was so worried. You did not reply to me," she quickly said. "I am sorry it took a long time to heal you, so we needed a rest." Waning replied, apologetic. They had never been disconnected from the human side for such a long time. Yup, Crescent affirmed as well. "She will not believe us with you jumping all around like that," Waning said, chuckling to the enthusiastic wolf. "But I need the exercise. It has been so long since I was out, and even longer since I shifted," Crescent stated, restless, still jumping around. "I can understand the need to shift, but exercise. We don't have a body at the moment, so what exactly are you exercising for?" Waning reasoned calmly. If Celia had a poker expressionless face, Waning was even more like a statue. But it never bothered Celia or Crescent. That was her natural way of being. She had a cold personality, but only meant the best for the other 2. Crescent pouted, but was not really upset, seeing them like this in her mind. Celia giggled, putting a little bit her mind at ease. They spent the night like this, with Celia talking to her wolves. But this relaxed state of mind unfortunately was not carried to the next day. In the morning, while she was getting ready for breakfast, she could feel her heart going up. Last night she felt more at ease, but now she was alone again. Her wolves needed some more rest and had only woken up because they felt her changed mood. Knock, knock. She heard knocking at the door. making her jump from the sofa on which she was seated. It felt like the sound was made by something actually hitting against her heart, rather than the door. "Please come in," she said with a higher-pitched tone accidentally, while she was trying to abstain from showing her preoccupied state within her words. "Miss Celia, we have brought breakfast for you," the maid informed her, just as cheerful as the day before, as she was entering and opening the door more for the other maid to come in with a tray. She breathed relieved. She had thought that she would have to see the king again soon, but it seemed like he was avoiding her too. Her heart felt a pang when she thought the last part. Why was she disappointed of him avoiding her when this was what she wanted? "Thank you," she simply said, hoping her emotions could not be seen. This was not the time to think of such things. Wait, she should never ponder about this, she convinced herself. "You are welcome. His Highness left early in the morning today, so he did not want to wake you up and only ordered us to bring your breakfast when you wake up. But do not worry, he will be dining at the palace in the evening," the maid cheerfully informed. She nodded her head, not acknowledging with words. Although she did not understand why the maid informed her each time about the king, it was not like she could ask her this directly, so she brushed the matter over, only trying to enjoy her meal, at least for now. She got through the breakfast time successfully, and it looked like there was also no problem for lunch. But the troublesome matter was what she would be doing at dinner. Enthusiasm, typing on a laptop and reviewing some documents. Solas was at the same time listening to reports from Micah. "Your Highness, there have been movements from the council again. I was informed that yesterday von Riemann landed at the airport," Micah said with the usual tone, among other things. So Solas asked, interested in the matter. Yvonne Riemann, if he remembered correctly, was one of the granddaughters of the third councilman, Narek Riemann. She must have wanted to visit her grandfather. Why was there a need for him to know? She did not come to visit her grandfather. Micah explained more, as if reading his thoughts. "I was informed that she came at the command of the head councilman. She does not have a mate, as he died soon after they met some years ago, and she is one of the leading candidates that the council selected to be your mate," Micah stated with more details, as Solas appeared to still not get what he was trying to explain. At least this was how he saw his expression as being. The air in the car got suddenly chilly, as Solas realized his meaning. Solas's aura was something difficult to bear for Micah and the driver, even though they knew his anger was not directed towards them. "Inform the council that they must prepare for me the reports for related problems from this year, and also a preliminary report on their budget expenses for the next 3 years. They have until the last day of this year," Solas ordered expressionlessly, after what seemed like a lifetime. If those geezers had so much time, then he would make sure it was filled to the brim with work. At least like this, he could his revenge. "Yes," Micah confirmed. His Highness was ruthless as always. The reports he had asked for would take a month or to compile if they worked constantly without interruptions. Normally the council would give His Highness the reports by February of the following year, but now he was taking all the free time they had, including their winter vacation. Also in from the palace guards. "Nobody can enter the palace today without my knowledge," Solas commanded simply, before restarting to read documents. Celia was in the palace alone. He really did not want the old man to meet her. What if he suddenly thought of some bright ideas? And also, Emery was capable of bringing that woman directly to the palace for him to see, without letting him know first. He knew this with certainty. It would not be the first time after all. If Celia met that woman, what if she thought of him as a casual, relaxed man? A man who just had flings without a care? It would be the worst. If she formed a bad impression of him, visualizing her upset face did not sit well with him. But thinking a bit more about the beautiful woman who had stolen his lips, a small impatable smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. He never thought she would be that daring, hugging him like that. It meant that in her moment of weakness, she thought of him as her support. Right. It also meant she liked him. Right. She did kiss him after all, of her own accord, dreaming some more with eyes wide opened. He felt that he did not know what best course of action should be from this point onwards, how to use this opportunity to change things for the better. He searched in his mind. and sighed when he finally realized he had no other choice but that man. He had no other person who could advise him on what to do, unfortunately. Well, that guy had always bragged about his relationship to everyone. He must have done something right to get his mate. He hoped. "Gabriel, are you home right now?" Solas asked as the call was answered on the other side of the phone call. If Celia would have known Solas's true thoughts, the whole idealized image that she had formed about the thirst-ranked werewolf, the most powerful werewolf in the entire kingdom, would plummet to the ground. Her opinion of him as a stern and somber man would shatter into pieces. The rest of the day quickly passed by, and even though Celia knew His Highness was not in the palace, she did not dare leave the guest room. But she was still not relaxed at all. As the hour for dinner came, she still had not managed to figure out how to face the king. She paced left and right more and more, dreading the knock that would be heard any second now, informing her of dinner. She thought to refuse. Perhaps she could tell the maid she had no appetite to eat. But what would she do if the king decided to still come to her room to check on her? What other reason could she use to not go and eat? She was still pacing in the room when a sound made her turn towards the door. Knock. Knock. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The art of a shameless man. As he finished his phone call, Gabriel was in deep thoughts when his mate walked into the room. Why are you so focused? Are you still struggling with finding the culprits? Maria asked him, worried. That too worries me. But we have another more pressing matter, he said resolutely. What problem? She asked, even more worried. What was so important that he included even her? His Highness called. He is coming to our house, Gabriel succinctly replied. Why would he? He always calls you to the palace. He never came to our house before. Maria stated, surprised. Well, we are about to find out. He will be here in about an hour, he replied with a pensive look. What? So soon? I have to go get things ready. I do not know if we have enough food for lunch or if it suits his tastes. What if he decides to eat with us? She said, frightened, and did not wait for Gabriel to reply as she was already out the door. Maria could hardly breathe in the alpha aura that His Highness was releasing. She was sitting with her mate on one couch, trying to not lower her neck in submission, gazing at the opposite couch, where Solas was sitting, with one of his feet crossed over the other. He was looking at the both of them expressionlessly. She still had not heard why Solas had visited them yet, but, seeing his frowned face and the pressure he was releasing, she was certain it was something of utmost importance. After a few more moments like this, second of unimaginable tension, Solas looked towards his beta and spoke to him some words which the latter acknowledged before leaving them alone. No sooner had Michael left, when finally Solas started to speak of the motive of his visit. What I am about to tell you will not leave this room. Defy my order and you will suffer the consequences. His voice was calm, but his tone still made the sixth-ranked wolf frightened. Gabriel had told Maria that it would not be something scary, but she was now sure that he had been wrong. The fate of the kingdom depends on your advice, so think carefully before you speak. Solas continued. Maria was already starting to tremble. She never thought there would ever be a day when the fate of the entire werewolf race would be on her mate's and her own shoulders. She was the mate of Gabriel, who had a very important post, that was true, but still, holding her breath, she waited for the king to speak. What must I do after a woman who kissed me fled? He serenely asked, looking intently at them, waiting for the answer. He was still not willing to call the act of touching their lips anything but a kiss. The both were stunned. Maria, because she had not expected this to be the reason for the potential downfall of the werewolf race, and as for Gabriel, because he did not expect that such a radical development would take place from yesterday until today. Celia's presence in Solas's life had made the future unpredictable, but in a good sense. He had thought that Solas would not react as fast as he did. At least yesterday he was still not thinking of acting. But what happened since yesterday? What caused Celia to kiss Solas? It must have been something Solas made possible. Otherwise he doubted she would make such a bold action by herself. Her quiet and solemn personality was not capable of such a feat, and Solos would never let anyone so close to him, much less kiss him, without his permission. If only he stayed longer at the palace yesterday. It was such a pity. Your Highness, what exactly happened? Gabriel probed, perhaps at least finding some more details. That is not something you need to know. Only answer the question, Solas calmly replied. You at least have to tell me what your purpose is. Do you want to pursue her into a relationship or avoid her altogether? He inquired, letting go of finding out more details. But he was still curious about this. Solas kept quiet for a moment. He did not want to let them know too much, but he understood that he must at least say this. Pursue her, he concisely responded. Maria was still surprised. Never in his life His Highness talked about a woman, much less have a relationship with one. She was incapable of imagining what type of woman the person who made Solas like this was. Could it be he found his mate? She thought, overjoyed that His Highness asked for his opinion. Gabriel cleared his voice and changed his way of speaking to the scholarly tone he had at the Royal Academy. He coughed a bit, clearing his voice, and said after a moment of thinking, Your Highness, the most important point that you have to retain is that you have to be a shameless person. Gabriel explained with a serious face. Solos frowned. Why would being a shameless person help in any way whatsoever? Gabriel, don't teach His Highness stupid things. The most important thing is for His Highness to be a gentleman and show care towards the lady. In time it will surely win her heart. Maria quickly denied. Did I conquer your heart by being a gentleman? Even when we discovered we were mates, you did not want to be a couple with me. So how did I win your heart? He asked her with his eyes squinting, as he was looking in her direction. Maria blushed and could not say how he did it. But it was certain he was not a gentleman. The things he did, seeing her look away with a red face. He smirked, pleased. His point was demonstrated right in Solas's eyes. So, Your Highness, as you can see, he said with a hand in his mate's direction, earning a glare from Maria, and then continued after a small cough. I think my point is explained. Gabriel continued, proud of himself. Solos fell in deep thoughts. If he were to think about it, his behavior last night was also somewhat shameless. He was filled with jealousy seeing Celia in the arms of another, so much so that, after calming Sky down from shifting, he sought her out again, in the indoor garden. Seeing her like that, frail and upset, she had hugged him defenseless, lie and fell asleep. Logically he should have carried her to her room to sleep comfortably, but he did not. In a sense he took advantage of the situation. He hugged her, liking the closeness of her body, and even dared kiss her temple when her face was so close near his. This gesture woke her up and she accidentally kissed him on the lips. All right, he admitted. Touched his lips. But instead of being a gentleman and ease her worries, he had insisted on it being a kiss. Moreover, he previously also did not even back away when their lips touched. He liked her flustered side that appeared because of him, because he felt like in that moment she saw him as a man instead of a king. He was still thinking with a hand on his chin, when Gabriel interrupted his thoughts. Solas, listen well to what I am about to teach you, and there will be no way that you will not be able to get the girl, he said again with a serious face. Gabriel cleared his voice and started to explain. He was about to share with Solas the art of being a shameless man. Generally, Solas would brush Gabriel off if he felt he was stupid, but now he found reason within his stupidity, so he kept silent, listening to his advances. Even Sky had his ears wide open. Maria had given up on trying to convince them otherwise. She just sat on the couch in silence, massaging her temples, but even then she still participated from time to time, the time when the adversaries got too exaggerated. Chapter 28. Oh, shameless man. Celia walked with slow steps until she reached the door of the dining room. Opening the door, the maid turned towards her and, with a smile, gestured with her hand for her to walk inside. Without even breathing or looking around the room, she entered reluctantly. She thought the maid would enter with her, but contrary to her expectations, she did not, and this only made her more anxious. How much longer will you stay by the door? The voice that made her heart jump out of her chest asked, as she was still not daring to approach the table and sit even after some time had passed. Hearing his familiar low male voice, she once again wanted to do what her instincts were screaming, so she turned towards the door to open it and run towards her room. But unfortunately, this time she only managed to put her hand on the doorknob, when another hand was on top of her own, stopping her from turning it. "Where are you going?" "The table is the opposite way," he said with a gentle voice tickling her ear, as his face was right beside it. Really, he was kidding her. He was always touching her, but it seemed that his touching was even more forward than before. He took his hand away, but still stood near her. He was clearly waiting for her to sit down, so having no other choice and trying to not disrespect him further, she went towards the chair and sat, following behind. Solos also went to his seat. He had not yet begun eating as he had waited for her, as he did when they previously ate together. He selected different types of foods and put them on her plate, before also selecting some for his own. They ate in silence, and at first she barely tasted the food, only nibbling some. It was difficult as she felt like her heart was stuck in her throat, but it was better than not eating, she thought. With food in her mouth she would not have to speak, so she forced herself to eat even though she did not taste a thing. After the meal she wanted to retire to her room. She was about to speak of this, but he beat her to it and spoke first. "Let's drink some tea," he said, and directly put the cup in front of her. She thought she could still retire early. She just had to gulp down the tea and quickly go. "So now then, about the kiss," he started to say, just as she was about to take the first gulp, but stopped when Celia started coughing. "Having choked with the tea? Drink slowly. It's still hot. Why are you so clumsy?" He sighed as he grabbed a napkin, handing it to her. She took the napkin and wiped her mouth. Really, this man, who exactly was at fault for causing her to choke? "Are you all right?" Solos asked her, worried. She only nodded, not wanting to speak. She was afraid she would stutter if she uttered even one word. She also did not dare lift her eyes to look up. Last night he had captured her gaze and she was afraid of it happening again. He verbally sighed a little louder than he generally would. "You do not even want to look at me anymore?" he gently asked, more like whispered. But of course she heard him. She was mostly recuperated, so her hearing was back to normal. Like it or not, she had to move her gaze up and look into his eyes. He was as expressionless as always, but she did not know how it was possible that she was still able to detect the small fluctuations of his mood. His ocean blue eyes were sad, and his handsome face looked clouded with worry. That's not it." She apologized. She felt guilty as he had been nothing but caring towards her, and it was indeed her fault. She had clung to him, and she was also the one who touched his lips. She had been confused when she woke up and thus did not remember that in fact he was the one who kissed her first. "Then what is it?" "After doing something like that to me," he sadly said. She felt her heart drop seeing the frowned and sad face. "It was an accident. I am truly sorry. I did not mean any discourtesy toward your highness. If I can make up for my error somehow," she quickly said. She did not know of his personal life, as he had a tight security around him and nobody knew much of the king outside official visits and business. Perhaps he had many women, perhaps he had none, but even so it was not like he would accept such a personal contact with anybody. He must have felt insulted. "Please don't call it an accident. For a first kiss of a person to be called an accident," he said again with a dejected tone, but did not continue. It was like he had already gotten his point across. I am so sorry." It really was Anne. She wanted to say accident, but because of his pleading, she could not actually say it. To have committed the blame of taking the king's first kiss and then not acknowledging it. How would he think of her? At this point she did not even realize that their roles had reversed, or that it was her first kiss also. "I do not blame you. Yesterday I was only worried about you, seeing you stagger towards the roses, so I came to make sure you were all right. And when you fell asleep hugging me, I was concerned to move you, so I let you sleep. I did not expect for you to run away like that from me." If I offended you in any way, I am sorry, he said, looking at her. His face was one of pure honesty. No, it was my fault. If there is anything I can do to right my wrong, I will do it. I truly mean it. Celia quickly apologized. Well, there is something you can do. But never mind. I do not want to make you uncomfortable, he said briefly, dismissing the problem. No, Your Highness, please tell me. As long as it is within my abilities, I can do it, she affirmed with eagerness. She was accustomed to help others. She had done many things for her family until now without them deserving it. For His Highness, who had done so much for her, she could do it without question. Then for the winter ball that is on the 20th, could you accompany me as my partner? Solos asked immediately and, seeing her confused look, continued explaining. It is imperative for me to have a female partner, but unfortunately I do not have one. The problem is also that the ball is for alphas and betas and their partners. As you are an alpha, you would be the perfect fit. Of course, if you do not want to participate, I will not blame you. Forget it. On second thought, it is too much. I should not have brought it up. I will go alone, Solos said, still expressionless. But she could see in his eyes that his pride would have to suffer. She was the kind of person, especially now after learning what her family did, that could not be pressured into doing something. But if you would not insist, then she would help you immediately. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I will be Your Highness's partner. Leave it to me, Celia quickly offered, without a second thought. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thank you. Now that I have some work to do, we will discuss more later. Solos thanked, pleased, and, without even drinking his tea, briskly left. His sad attitude changed immediately, brightening up at her response. Moreover, he was previously sitting relaxed, like he was not busy at all, but now he quickly left. It felt a little suspicious to her, how he changed from one moment to another, and also the fact that he left suddenly. It felt like he was leaving so she would not change her mind. She brushed the thoughts away. There was no reason for His Highness to do that, and at least now it would not be awkward to see him again. Actually, it was better that they discussed the previous day's situation, and perhaps deep down, a tingling feeling rubbed a corner of her heart, knowing that the king had been her first kiss and she had been his. The following day she ate breakfast and lunch alone in her room, as His Highness was once again absent from the palace. So her time passed peacefully until the afternoon. She was reading books, trying to catch up on her studies, when four maids interrupted her learning time. Because the ball was only a few days away, they were instructed to help with her outfit and accessories. The maids brought with them dresses in all kind of different styles, and even though she tried to tell them she was satisfied to how the first dress she tried on looked, they did not want to hear it, forcing her to try on every single dress. Only after she tried all the gowns, they would settle on the one that looked best. This is the one. It looks absolutely stunning and it matches your body, exclaimed one of the maids, when Celia tried on the last dress. In reality, they had arranged the dresses in the order from the least beautiful to the best, so naturally the last one she tried on was the most suitable one. The other maids were quick to agree, and even Celia knew the last one was the one most fitted for her. She was the one who had done all her dresses in the past and could see that, even though each dress was made from the finest materials, the last one was the most beautiful. I cannot wait to see Miss Celia and His Highness side by side. They will make such a beautiful pairing, enthusiastically noted one of the maids. Imagining the picture of the two of them made her eyes sparkle. That's right, I can hardly wait. His Highness has never brought a partner to the winter ball. How lovely the two of them will look, agreed another one. Yes, they will look stunning. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It would have been better His Highness to inform us earlier. We only have prayer-made dresses. We could have dressed Miss Celia in a custom one. I had no idea he would bring a partner with him this year. I thought His Highness would go again alone to the ball like the previous years. Another maid affirmed, slightly dissatisfied at the lack of time. His Highness went alone to the ball the previous years. Celia asked, curious, only now paying attention to the conversation between the maids. Yes, Miss Celia. His Highness has never brought a female partner. You are the first one, assured the maids immediately. Perhaps they were afraid she would be sad if she thought the king was used to having a female partner each year. But isn't it imperative to have a female partner? Celia inquired again, slightly confused. Miss Celia, of course it is not necessary to bring a female partner. The only ones obligated to attend are the alphas of the packs. Their companions and the betas are an optional presence. If there are some who do not come, there is no problem, explained one maid who was still arranging her hair, checking which style best suited the dress. And even if it was mandatory, who would dare to say something to the king? So many years he has went alone and nobody said anything about it. The alphas can barely breathe in His Highness's presence, much less gossip about him, added another maid, with the other three approving. Hearing their words, Celia was even more confused than when she started to ask the maids. Even when they left, she was in deep thoughts. If it was not mandatory to bring a partner, why did His Highness make it seem like it would be a problem? Thinking some more, His Highness was the first-ranked werewolf and in fact was the strongest of all werewolves. His words were the law, so why would he care about anyone saying anything? Why did he make it seem like his pride would be tattered? She thought some more from the beginning of yesterday's conversation to the end, realizing that the maid's words actually cleared her suspicions of when he briskly left, after getting her to agree to be his partner. Clearing her thoughts now, as she was not under the pressure of explaining about the kiss. Touch. It was a touch. The entire conversation had been steered in the direction of her being his partner to the ball. Did His Highness trick her into feeling guilty so she would not refuse his request? Indeed, if he had not confused her, or if there was a situation, she would not have agreed to be the king's partner. Such unwanted attention was not something she wished for. She could not believe it. All her life until this moment she had respected the king of the werewolves. She had studied about him and admired his strength, his relentlessness in pursuing for the causes of the werewolf race, his fairness and his honesty. She had looked up to him. She had considered him the ideal of a person she wished to become. She would have never thought she would come to consider his relentlessness as brazenness. And most importantly, she would have never, absolutely never, thought that she would end up thinking of the king of all werewolves as a shameless man. Chapter 29. You are the reason it was already the day before the ball. In Thistlehatom, she had met His Highness several times for the meals, but she did not dare ask him why he lied. Anyway, regardless of his reasons, she had already agreed to accompany him, so she would just participate in the ball and then ask His Highness to permit her to return to the academy. She was behind in her studies, not to mention she was already healed, so there were no more reasons for her to stay. She felt like if she stayed longer she was bound to misunderstand his actions. She already had a mate. There would not be another, but the proximity to the king and his close distance each time she was near confused her. But how to inform the king and actually return to the academy was something for later. Now she had a huge hurdle to pass. In her life she had been to balls. Her mother had forced her to, but she still had a problem. She had never danced. Mentioning this fact to the maids when they asked her, had set them with a goal to accomplish. They promised her that even if there was only a day left, she would at least learn to waltz. She had not asked them for the lessons. She even said that there was no need for her to dance, that they did not want to hear her. And in front of their eagerness and friendliness towards her, it was difficult for her to make them stop. So now here she was in a room within the royal palace waiting for the dancing instructor. She was dressed in a wavy peach maxi dress and high heels, with her long hair put up in a ponytail. They told her it would be easier for her to learn how to dance in a dress, so she would not have any problems the following day in her ballroom gown. She was only waiting for a quarter of an hour, when she heard movements at the door and immediately rose up to greet her teacher. "Are you ready for the lesson?" the king asked with a hoarse, elegant voice. "Your Highness," Celia stated, surprised. Why would the king come and ask if she was ready? Yes. I will be teaching you how to dance. Reading her mind. There is no need to. You are busy. How could I ask of you to teach me? She tried to refuse. I am not busy today. I already have a clear schedule for the ball. Might as well fill it with a dance lesson. He calmly answered with a normal tone, but his face seemed bright and happy. She still wanted to refuse. The proximity of their bodies would suffocate her. Moreover, by being so close, she was afraid of her heart exploding. Still, he did not leave her a choice as he gently held her hand and guided her to the center of the room, but not before placing his phone on the chair she was previously sitting on. The phone was opened on YouTube with the song already playing. Reaching the center of the room, he took her right hand and placed it in his left palm, then slowly placed his right hand on her waist. With both hands touching her, she felt electric shocks all around her body, but she could not give any sort of indication when he was staring intently into her eyes. She was a tall girl if compared to normal standards, but now next to Salas she looked petite. He explained a bit the movements, then slowly started to move her on the rhythm of the song. In such close proximity to the king, enveloped in his touch and smell, she was already feeling giddy. But with the romantic song in the background, the atmosphere felt even more ambiguous. She kept looking down, trying to not make any mistakes, and hurt his feet. But perhaps he felt she was trying to look away for another reason. Is something wrong? Am I dancing too fast? He asked, worried. No, of course not. She quickly denied. He was holding her tenderly and trying to match her movements. So how could he be dancing fast? But he inquired again, approaching her face. Seeing him even closer, she tried to redirect his attention. It is nothing. I was only confused to why Your Highness chose this song. I did not think it is a particular song for waltzing. Praising herself inside for finding a proper reason. She did not know she would come to regret asking him this. And she would regret just moments later. It is because this song suits you, he stated honestly, slightly moving her around in slow steps. How does this song suit me? She asked, confused, but also a little interested. There goes my heart beating. You are the reason I'm losing my sleep, he gently whispered near her ear. Her face flushed hearing his voice so close, and his words stunned her so much that she stopped dancing altogether. What? She finally managed to say. When she had stopped dancing, he had stopped with her, but he still had not let go of her hands. It fits perfectly for you. You seem like the kind of woman a man would lose sleep thinking about, he said with a small smile on his lips and eyes sparkling. She was still confused, not to mention shy and with a bright red face. Her lips were trying to form words, but could not, and seeing the smile on the usually solemn face did not make her concentration any better. The song is called You Are the Reason by Callum Scott. Not teasing her more. Hearing his words, she finally listened to the background song. Paying attention, she only now understood that the words he previously said had been the lyrics of the song. She felt flustered for overly reacting like she did, even stopping her steps. But she was still feeling even more embarrassed that he considered her capable of causing a man to lose his sleep. She was not that beautiful. She had never been sought out by guys all throughout her life. She did not have such charm that could make guys fall in love, much less keep them up at night, thinking about her. Please do not tease me anymore, Your Highness. She finally managed to plead quietly. She felt that since she woke up after the attack, he had kept toying with her, whether through actions or words. I have never joked with you, Celia. Not even once, Solas affirmed with an honest face. In that moment, she felt like he was saying that he too would lose sleep thinking of her, so she dared not take this conversation further. Fortunately, he stopped talking and only slowly made her dance again. For the rest of the lesson, Solas properly taught her to dance, not teasing her more. Perhaps he sensed that she was already nervous as it was, without him doing anything. If he had said more, it was likely she would leave earlier. The day of the ball started with an early wake-up call from the maids. They came prepared to keep her occupied the entire day, getting her ready. Even breakfast and lunch were brought to her room to save time. The king was also caught up in preparations and would not eat with her. Night came faster with the girls around her. Normally, when they were in the presence of the king, they were quiet and only answered if they were asked something. But now, even though she resembled him in personality, as she was also a quiet and expressionless person, the girls kept on laughing and talking. She did not mind, as they brightened up her day and relieved some of the nervousness she was feeling. She had quickly agreed to be the partner of the king, but only now realized what it would entitle. All the council members, all the alphas and betas, every guest would have their eyes on her, if only for the fact that she would enter with His Highness. She had never had that much attention on her, as she was what one would call a wallflower. Each time she participated in a ball before. Still, regretting or not, she had agreed, and now here she was walking down the stairs to meet His Highness. Perhaps he sensed her, so he turned around. Looking up, she was nervous to how he would see her, if she was presentable enough to be his partner. Her long hair had been styled in big loose curls, cascading on her back, with only a small flowery hairpin keeping in place several strands of hair. And even though the maids had insisted, only a simple natural makeup was applied on her face. She hoped that the makeup, her hairstyling and natural colored dress would blend her in the background as much as possible, as her presence at the king's side was already enough. The dress the maids had chosen did not look too flashy. It was quite pleasing to the eyes, but even then, she still worried that she was not beautiful enough for it. The off-shoulder dress was champagne-colored with small embroidered flowers all around it. On top of the opaque material, grey tulle and lace were overlapped so the color was toned down, making the overall aspect of the dress not too sharp. As she did not like to stand out too much, the color was perfect, but it still felt like it was made for a princess. It wrapped around tight the upper part of the abdomen, before it fell on the floor in waves. Reaching the last step, she slowly approached him, conscious of how she looked. She did not dare meet his eyes, as she felt him looking at her before she even descended. Fortunately, the tall man in front of her, dressed in a black suit with a grey handkerchief in his breast pocket, did not say anything. He only offered his hand, which she hesitantly took. Even though the ball was in the compound of the palace, they still had to exit the building they resided in and drive towards the avenue where the ball took place. She heard from the maids that the ballroom was a little farther than where they were currently living, because this were the private quarters of His Majesty, so this building was located deep within the palace ground, far away from prying eyes. This was also the reason why there were only a few maids. As the king liked his privacy, she previously thought that the maids she saw inside the personal quarters were a lot, but she had been wrong. When she reached the ballroom, standing in front of the door, welcoming them, several dozen persons were waiting with their heads already bowed. He alighted the car first and permitted them to raise their heads, then turned towards her with his hand holding her own, helping her alight as well. She took a heavy breath while holding his arm, preparing herself for the hundreds of gazes that would come from the guests. It was already more than 6 months ago. The last time she saw her family as a real loving one. It was the time before she left her home for the Watcher test. And it was more than 5 months ago when she returned home, surprising them with the fact that she had passed the test. It left them shocked at the time, because nobody had expected her to pass. How could Celia have the ability to become one of the Watchers of the Packs? One of the few people directly under the command of His Highness, the King of all werewolves. Encouraging her to take the test by her mother had only been an easier way to get her away from the pack, so her younger sister could steal her mate. They had taught that, considering the time it took for the training and the test itself, she would be away from the pack for 6 months. In this time her sister would have already become the Luna in her place, so she could do nothing about it. But fate helped her to see the real face of her loved ones. The period of time had been shortened by the academy. It went down from 6 months to just 1 month for the test to take place. So when she came back, it was just in time for the lunar ceremony of her sister. She left her pack territory then, thinking she would never return to her home and would never see her family again. She did not mind so much the mate she lost, because her family's actions had hurt her more. But now 6 months or more later, what it would have been the time she would have returned home, if the timing for the testing had not been changed. Here she was holding the arm of the werewolf king, the most powerful of werewolves. She was waiting with him for the massive doors of the ballroom to open and for the doorman to announce their presence. She was moments away of seeing the parrot she had thought she would never see again. Chapter 30. His Highness's date in the afternoon. The day of the ball. Mom, I am so excited to participate in tonight's ball. What do you think of the dress I bought? Is it glamorous enough? Asked Brianna, looking satisfied and happy, as she was checking out her dress. You girl, you are already 6 months pregnant. Why did you buy a mini dress with that big of a cleavage? Not to mention the red bright cut. And what if you trip with those high heels? Asked her mother. She had thought to accompany her daughter when she searched for a dress, but the latter had already said she bought one alone. If she knew there was the dress Brianna bought, she would have stopped her from wearing it. But now there was no time to buy another one. Really, it was easier before, when Celia was making her dresses. She always took notice of what fitted Brianna and the occasion it was for. But now her youngest daughter, so what if I am 6 months pregnant? I still have to look my best, don't I? I am the Luna of the New Moon Pack. People might say we are not powerful and influential enough if I dressed too shabby. Brianna answered arrogantly, not even looking at her mother. We also informed your sister to come and reject Trey and properly. If you show up all up like that, do you think she will still take pity on you? Her mother asked, trying to reason with her more. Brianna snorted hearing her mother, as if she cared about what her sister would think. She was some months away from giving birth to Rayan's heir. She had checked and the pup was a boy. Her position was already solid enough. Like it or not, her sister should reject Ray and get it done with. Her sister was the third person in her and Rayan's relationship. She had met him first. She failed to consider the fact that Celia was the true mate and, in the werewolf society, the mate was always the right partner and the first choice for another wolf, especially for an alpha, who would become more powerful by mating and marking his rightful mate. Mom, she said she didn't want him then. She left us like that. How can she do something about it now? Brianna asked, upset. Even if she does not want Rayan. Your father told her you were in the hospital in critical condition, and now several days later, here you are attending the ball dressed up. What if she suspects that we only tried to trick her into letting go of Rayan? Her mother asked. We will be meeting the king tonight. I've heard his highness is quite a handsome man. Shouldn't I look my best? Who knows? Perhaps I can even warm up to him and he may just help me get rid of the bond between Celia and Rayan. If his highness uses his alpha voice on her, she would have no choice but to say the rejection words, even without her willingness. Brianna stated, like what she said was the righteous thing in the world. Brianna, his highness meets so many werewolves each year. Do you think he would take notice of every member of every pack? Even if we are talking about alphas, there are some who have never spoken to him. In all the years I've went to the ball, I have never gotten even in a few feet away from him, much less speak with him. Her mother reasoned, trying to suppress the childish dreams of her daughter. You never know, Mom. Perhaps he might just talk with me, and even if he doesn't, I still will not talk to Celia. She has to let go of Ray, and no matter what. How can the aunt's baby become his stepmother? She will have to let go, one way or another. It is not my problem how. Brianna said, getting angrier. Her mother, Diane, did not argue with her longer. She tried many times to reason with Brianna, to make her call her sister and end their differences, but she never succeeded. Although Diane explained to her daughter that Celia could harm them if she wanted to, by using her position. Unfortunately, Brianna not only did not listen to her, she had even scolded her by using her position as Luna, making her submit. So the relationship between them was strained each time Diane mentioned Celia to her youngest daughter, and she did not want to make the situation worse. In the end, her mother gave up trying to argue further, or even talk with Brianna. She was more preoccupied thinking of how to talk with Celia and mend a little her own relationship with her eldest daughter. She was Celia's mother, the only one she had. Her daughter had listened to her always. If she talked a little more with her, she should be easier to convince than Brianna. She had let her cool off for this period of time, so by now Celia should want to talk with her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was for the better. The opportunity she gave Celia, the chance to become a watcher, was even better than becoming a Luna of a pack. The Luna always had to listen to her alpha, but a watcher would make even an alpha submit. A couple of feet down the hallway, from where Brianna and her mother were in, Rayanne was pacing up and down in another room. Will you stop moving about? You will give me a headache. Rayanne's mother. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Said displeased. Why aren't you going to your own room? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Also inquired. And sit with the mother and daughter while they are getting ready. Why should I stay with those two? When only seeing their faces and it makes me want to puke. Rayanne stated sarcastically, with nothing but venom spouting from his mouth. He was forced to accept that woman and make her Luna, even though she had pretended to be an innocent girl and his rightful mate. Nowadays, having accomplished her goal, she revealed more of her true face. Her words, her personality, her shyness, even her clothing had turned to 180 degrees. She only knew how to spend money and ask for this and that. In the end, just so he did not have to see her often, he had given her a credit card and tried to stay far away from her. But more and more, she was getting even more insufferable. Having accomplished her materialistic desires, she now wanted him as well. She kept purring near him like a cat, enticing him. Did she really think that after seeing the real her, he still stood a chance? He was only waiting for her to give birth. By right, the alpha's children would always remain in the pack, especially a boy. The second Brianna gave birth, she would be gone from his life, one way or another. Rayanne, she is your Luna, whether you like it or not. You are the one who chose her. Now own up to it. She is the future mother of your children. His father sternly scolded him. Richard was already upset because of his son. He had failed to recognize his own Luna, even though he should have found her at the summer ball before Celia left the pack. Now there was no more point regretting. Also Celia had said that Rayanne should marry her sister. This, coupled with the fact that everyone knew she was the would-be Luna, had made him force his son complete the Luna ceremony. Not children, only one child. As if I would ever have another child with her, Rayanne said, disgusted at the mere thought of spending another night with Brianna. Just you watch, father. Once the ball is over, I will go to the academy and talk to Celia. I will convince her to come back with me. She must have suffered these past few months being away from me. Once I reason with her, she will come back with me. Only then I will have my rightful Luna. Rayanne continued saying, with hope clear in his eyes. The night of the ball, Rayanne, you have to hold her hand. Richard ordered his son. Why should I? Rayanne asked, visibly upset. Because every couple that enters the ballroom does so. It is one of the many royal protocols I have asked you to take notice of and read. Don't tell me you did not read the protocol manual. What if you disrespect His Highness in some way? Richard whispered to his son, but his voice, although not loud, was authoritative. I read it. I read it. Don't worry, father, I know how to act in the king's presence. Rayanne assured his father, dismissive of the matter. The fact that you called His Highness the king in a place where everyone could listen makes me doubt you. Richard immediately scolded. After repeated scolding and reminding from his father, Rayanne finally reluctantly held Brianna's hand, who was by now grinding her teeth, and it was only the beginning of the evening. Finally, at 8 p.m., as the guests arrived, murmur could be heard from the hallway. It signified the arrival of the king. so everyone that was still in the hallways quickly entered the giant ballroom. "I can hardly wait to see His Highness," Brianna exclaimed enthusiastic. Rayan said nothing in response to her affirmation, only irritated rolled his eyes and looked disgusted towards her. "All who are seated, rise on your feet," the doorman's voice boomed in the large ballroom. But even without him raising his voice, the high-ranking wolves in the room would have heard him nonetheless. There was no need for him to say it again. In the next moment, all were standing and looking at the door. As always, the king was last to appear, so everyone that should have come was already in the ballroom. Two doormen opened, each one a side of the double door, revealing the king and his partner, as well as the closest associates of the king, his beta Micah, Gamma, Joshua, Gabriel, along with their partners, followed behind the first-rank werewolf, Sola's Christian Wolf, and Nissia Blair, the alpha of this year's Generation Watcher pack, are in attendance. Almost everyone in the room deeply bowed their heads, but there was still a general small murmur. His Highness had never brought a partner to the ball. The only two people who had not reacted and bowed were Rayan and Brianna, as both of them froze at the mention of Celia's name. Fortunately for them, they were far behind in the ballroom, having their table located with other smaller packs. Rayan looked starstruck. Celia seemed even more beautiful than the last time he saw her. Under the twinkling light of the chandeliers, her manner, her beauty as in her overall appearance was nothing but elegant. There was longing and love at his eyes, but also confusion. Why would Celia appear at the arm of the werewolf king? The way the king held her arm as he entered showed care towards her. He walked slowly to accommodate her long dress, and his gaze never left her. You would recognize that gaze anywhere. It was the gaze of a man in love. If it was not for the fact that the opponent was the king, he would have already ripped his head off. He could not go and fight for his mate, but a low small growl still rumbled in his throat. At the same time, Brianna had only briefly looked towards Celia, before turning her eyes to the most handsome man she had ever seen. His Highness was the embodiment of the ideal man. Moving her gaze between the two of them, she kept her fingers clenched in her palms, with blood threatening to come out because of the force. She already had Celia's mate. She was finally supposed to surpass her, even though Celia was a watcher and had a higher ranking in society. In terms of romance at least, she was supposed to be the winner. She had Celia's mate, an alpha of the pack, but the latter now appeared at the arm of the werewolf king. Her eyes were filled with hate, but she was still convinced that Celia had such an honor only because she was part of the Watcher students, the first Watcher female. "Don't be nervous. I am here with you," Solos encouraged Celia with a small voice, feeling a slight tremble on his arm. She was nervous when she heard the announcement before walking inside the ballroom. Feeling a bit more at ease because of his thoughtfulness, she inhaled a deep breath and nodded. "You can all raise your heads," Solas ordered with a stern voice. Only then, the numerous alphas, betas, nunes, council members and other invited guests dared to look up to see his partner. Some looked only a little to satisfy their curiosity, while others stared more intently. But there was not a single person who did not at least steal a glance. "Please enjoy yourselves this evening and be at ease. Although tomorrow we will talk serious matters, tonight we are only a large extended family," Solas continued as a greeting to all of them, before heading to his own table. As the king, his table was the one in front of the room. At the same table also sat his most closest associates. As such, at a table, the ones who followed behind Solas when he entered, also sat, plus the head councilman and the second-in-command council member. The next ones were occupied by the other council members. Then followed tables of members of other packs, with the closest to the king's table being the most powerful of werewolves and members of the strongest packs, getting further away from the king's tables at the weaker alphas and members of the weaker packs. As a true gentleman, he pulled Celia's seat and helped her get comfortable, and only after pulled his own seat and sat. "Your Highness, it has been some time since we last saw each other," the head councilman affirmed with a small smirk on his face. Has it? I do not think it has been that long, Emery, answers nonchalant Solas. It has indeed, your highness. In fact, I had some urgent matters to discuss with you, but did not manage to find you at all. Even when I came to the palace, I was obstructed to come to your personal quarters. Not to mention I have not even been able to get in touch with you on the phone. Did the guards not at least mention my visit? The councilman continued with his questions, unfazed by Solas's lack of interest. Really? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Solas asked like he was surprised, but his voice was actually monotone. I was not aware you had tried to visit me. I was under the impression you were just touring the palace, since the guards informed me you were accompanied. And you know my personal quarters are not available to the public for sightseeing. Next time call in advance if you are coming to visit, Solas replied calmly, with the same expressionless face. The head councilman was baffled. He tried to prick Solas, but there was no chance to do so. Not only that, he had even called the attempt to introduce Yvonne to him as a sightseeing tour. The lady was right next to him at the moment. What if she felt disrespected? The councilman peeked to the blonde blue-eyed beauty that was sitting at his right, but no evident emotion could be seen on her face, other than pure interest towards the king. She was even slightly smiling, since Solas had said. She had followed every step and move he made. She did not even bat an eyelid. Shaw turned a gaze towards Celia, a bit relieved that the lady was still hopeful. The councilman looked towards Solas again. Well, never mind, your highness. It was my fault. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I would like to introduce to you Miss Yvonne Riemann. This lovely single lady just flew from England to be here tonight. She is one of the highest-ranking female werewolves at the moment, explained the councilman quickly. He was afraid that Solas would interrupt him. He was also afraid of Solas saying something wrong to the lady. That was why he had said just how powerful she was. Solas respected a powerful werewolf, so by informing him, he would have a little more restraint in his choice of words. It is nice to see you again, your highness. I have not met your highness since. A sweet voice started saying. Is that so? Congratulations, Emery. Solas interrupted, not letting Yvonne finish her greeting. He never even looked in the beautiful woman's direction. He was more interested in the person that sat at his left side. Seeing her with her palms under the table, a little fidgeting because of the constant stares, his heart ached. Perhaps she tried to look at ease. So she took a glass of wine and was about to drink from it. What are you congratulating me for, your highness? The councilman asked with a frown. He was upset that Solas still behaved unbothered towards the lady, even though he had told him just how powerful she was. But he would not dare scold the king, especially not in front of so many people. Well, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. For your new love, at your age to manage to charm the young lady. It is quite an accomplishment, Solas stated relaxed, and at the same time took Celia's glass from her hand before it reached her mouth. What are you saying, your highness? She is not my lover, quickly affirmed the councilman. What was the king thinking? Normally he would not be so sharp with his words in an official setting. Even though it was not the first time he had introduced ladies to him, he had never reacted like this. He would just listen a bit and find a reason to dismiss them. Wine is not good for you. You have barely healed. Here, drink some strawberry juice, Solas gently said to Celia with a changed tone, as he set the glass of wine on the table and replaced it with a juice-filled one. She only nodded. She felt like she had unintentionally stepped in the conversation between the two men. Receiving the glass, she drank a few sips. The juice was quite sweet and yummy. She liked it a lot, as it was made from her favorite fruits. Oh, she is not your lover. But at this table, other than us that are working together, only our dates for this evening are allowed to sit. If she is not your date, then why is she sitting with us? Asked Solas, returning to his stern voice. Hearing his words, and especially the word that Celia started to cough. Having choked with her juice, Solas immediately took notice of her and grabbed a napkin from the table, and with the same warm tone he had used the other day when she had choked, gently scolded, "Drink slowly, no one will steal it from you." She again nodded and, taking the napkin from his hand, gently patted her lips to not smear the lipstick. "Oh, is because she is the granddaughter of Councilman Marek, and I thought," the councilman said. He was upset by the words Solas was using to toy with him, but at the same time his heart was jumping for joy, seeing his attentiveness towards a woman, even if it was not the woman he was trying to introduce. He was thrilled. Well then, if she is Marek-Kremen's granddaughter, why is she not sitting at his table? Her memory, Solas asked, finally turning his gaze to look at the elder. The councilman was trying to find his words when Yvonne took the lady in, answering Solas.